Chosen one, what you are about to hear was placed in front of you for a very specific reason, not for everyone watching, for you, in this exact season, on this exact day, at this exact hour of your journey. Before we go anywhere, let me say something first. I know what it has cost you to arrive here still believing. The seasons of holding a promise that moved slowly. The moments where your faith grew quieter, not because it weakened, but because real faith does not need to be loud, it only needs to continue. The prayers that began with full voice and ended in silence. The version of you that kept going anyway. I see that person. And I need to say something to that person before anything else. You were right. Every single day of it, you were right to hold on. Because what felt like God going silent was God being precise. What felt like abandonment was formation. What felt like a delay that would never end was the final phase of something being built inside you, something that required every day it took and could not be completed one moment sooner. And now, right now, it is complete. Here is what has been placed on my heart to tell you today. God is done waiting, not in judgment, not in disappointment, in release, in harvest, in the specific moment when what was always inside you is finally allowed to emerge. Chosen one, the chrysalis is breaking, the shift has begun, and you found this message today because it is time for you to know exactly what that means. I need you to stay with me through everything today, because by the time we reach the end of this message, you are going to understand 3 things that most people in your season never get to hear. You are going to understand why the waiting was never wasted, not one single day of it, and why it was necessary in ways that will actually make sense to you. You are going to understand what the shift restructures in your life, in specific and honest terms, not vague promises. And you are going to discover something about your own brain, backed by decades of research, that changes how you receive what God is releasing right now. Everything today builds on itself, and where this message ends is the part that changes the most. Everything I'm about to share with you in the next 30 minutes is completely free. Every word of it is a gift for this season. But if at any point your spirit tells you there is something more that you need, something beyond what words alone can give, it will be waiting in the description and the pinned comment below. Only go when you feel led. Now, before I explain what the shift looks like, I need to show you something first, because God does not move without sending advance signals, and the signals have already been arriving in your life. You may have been receiving them without having a language for what they were pointing toward. There are 5 things I want you to hold up against your own experience right now. The first is something happening with your sleep, not ordinary insomnia. Not the kind of restlessness that follows a stressful day. Something different. You wake at the same hour without any alarm, and when you lie there in the dark, there is no panic in you, just a strange alertness, as if the quiet is asking you to pay attention. Or maybe the dreams have become unusually vivid. Dreams that feel more real than your waking hours. Dreams that leave specific images behind when morning comes. Images you cannot explain and cannot stop thinking about. This is not a sleep disorder. This is your spirit processing something your waking mind is not yet ready to hold. The second is a kind of tiredness that has nothing to do with how much rest you got. It lives in the bones. It is the exhaustion of carrying weight that is not physical, the weariness of holding a promise upright through a long season without knowing when it will finally move. You can sleep 8 hours and wake feeling as though you have been doing heavy lifting for years. Because in a way, you have. That tiredness is not weakness. That tiredness is evidence of how much you have been carrying without ever putting it down. The third is in your emotions. Something strange has been happening there. Waves of peace that arrive without any external reason. You are going about an ordinary day. Nothing has changed. And suddenly, there is a quiet inside you that feels almost like a presence, like warmth in a room that has no visible source. And then, just as suddenly, a low, aching sadness arrives. Not grief, not despair, just the feeling of something ending that you cannot yet name, and then peace again, and then the aching again. No pattern, no trigger, just the weather of a soul in transition. This is the emotional signature of a season that is shifting. The ground beneath your life is moving, and you are feeling it before you can see it. The fourth is in your tolerance. Things that used to feel comfortable no longer fit the way they did. Conversations that used to feel fine now feel like wearing clothes that belong to someone else. Environments you have been in for years have started to feel almost physically draining, and you cannot explain why, because nothing visibly changed. You find yourself pulling back, not out of judgment, not because you stopped caring, but because something in you has outgrown the space without yet finding the new one. This is not ingratitude. This is alignment beginning. When you are preparing to step into a new season, the old one begins to release you before you even realize you need to go. And the fifth sign is this. In the past several weeks, the same word, the same phrase, the same specific idea has been appearing across completely unrelated sources. You heard it in a conversation, and then found the same concept in something you picked up by chance. And then someone said the exact phrase again, in an unrelated setting, and you felt something shift in your chest when you heard it the third time. The same thing, across separate sources, with no coordination between them. Your spirit is tuning to a frequency. It is picking up a signal being broadcast for this exact moment in your life. And the repetition is not coincidence. It is confirmation. This is not anxiety. This is not burnout. This is not random restlessness. This is your body and your spirit responding to something moving in the unseen, something that has your name written on it, something that is very close now. Now I want to tell you where those signs come from, because they are not random. They are symptoms of a very specific process, and that process has a name. I want you to imagine a chrysalis. Not the butterfly, the chrysalis itself, the sealed shell. Inside that container, something is happening that looks like nothing from the outside. No visible movement, no measurable progress, just a still, dark shell hanging in the air. If you did not know better, you might think something had died in there. But inside, something is being reconstructed at the most fundamental level. Everything the caterpillar was is being dissolved and reorganized into something entirely different. And the caterpillar, if it could speak, would not describe it as transformation. It would describe it as pressure, darkness, confusion about what it is becoming. That is your season. You have been inside the chrysalis, and God has been working in you in ways that look like nothing from the outside but are changing everything on the inside. The first thing God was building during this season was a stripped identity. There is a version of you that was built for approval, built to manage how other people saw you, built to soften your edges so the people around you would stay comfortable. God has been dismantling that version with great care, not to hurt you, to free you, because the person you are becoming cannot stand on a foundation that belongs to someone else. What is coming will require you to stand in spaces where no one immediately applauds or understands, and you will need to stand there anyway. The wilderness stripped away every scaffold that could not hold the weight of what comes next. The second thing God was building is the specific skill that the shift will immediately require. Patience is not the obstacle to the shift. Patience is the skill the shift is going to demand. Every morning you got up when nothing had moved. Every night you chose trust over the evidence you could see. Every day you kept faith alive without external confirmation. You were not just surviving the season, you were developing capacity. You were building the specific muscle that the assignment ahead requires. You were being trained, not delayed. And the third thing God was doing during this season is the one most people miss entirely. The people and the environments that could not survive your shift were being removed in advance, not as punishment, as preparation of the ground. Because what is coming into your life cannot coexist with everything that was there before. Some relationships ended in ways that confused you. Some doors closed that you tried to hold open. Some seasons finished in ways that felt like loss. Every one of those endings was God clearing the field before the planting, not taking from you, making room. A chrysalis that breaks open too early kills the butterfly. That is not metaphor, that is biology. The resistance of the shell is not the enemy of the wing. The resistance is what builds the strength in the wing. A butterfly helped out before it is ready drops to the ground because its wings never had the chance to develop what they need to carry its own weight. God was not holding the door shut. God was ensuring that when you walk through it, you will be able to stand on the other side. And this brings me to the first revelation I need to share with you today, because everything I just described, the signs, the pressure, the stripping away, all of it has a specific name in a very ancient language. And once you hear it, everything you thought you knew about why this took so long is going to shift. The ancient Greeks understood something about time that most of us were never taught. They knew there are two entirely different kinds of time. Most of us only know one. We know chronos, sequential time, the kind that marches forward whether or not we are ready. Chronos does not care about conditions. Chronos is just the river flowing without stopping. But there was a second word, kairos. And kairos is not clock time. Kairos is appointed time. The moment that does not arrive on a schedule. The moment that arrives only when the conditions are right. When the person is ready. When what has been building has reached completion. Kairos is the moment that could not have come one day sooner, because one day sooner it would have been too early. God has not been operating in your life according to chronos. God has been operating according to kairos. And the reason the shift has felt late is because you have been measuring it with the wrong clock. Consider Moses. He spent 40 years in the wilderness. Not 5, not 10, 40. He was 80 years old when God spoke to him from the burning bush. By every chronos measurement, that moment arrived too late. A life already mostly spent. A calling that should have come decades earlier. But God was not operating in chronos. The 40 years were not punishment for what happened in Egypt. They were the building of a specific kind of man, a man stripped of every entitlement he once carried. A man who had learned the roots of the desert because he would lead a nation through it one day. A man whose confidence had been completely rebuilt on something that would not collapse under the weight of the assignment ahead. The burning bush was not an interruption of the life Moses was living. It was the kairos moment for which every single day of that wilderness had been building capacity. And I hear the Spirit saying to someone listening right now, your wilderness has not been too long. It has been exactly as long as it needed to be. Consider Esther, when Mordecai said to her, for such a time as this, he was not offering comfort. He was issuing a commission. The moment she was standing in was not the moment she had planned for herself. It was the moment that required everything the quiet years of her formation had built in her. It was kairos, and she was the person it required precisely because she was the person those years had made. Chosen one, you are standing in your for such a time as this. I want to pause here for just a moment, not because there is nothing left to say, because what comes next deserves a clear mind. You have been holding something heavy while listening to this, so before we go further, just take one real breath right now. Let the air come all the way down, and as it leaves, let everything you just heard settle. There is nothing to do with it yet. Just let it land. Now, I want to plant something in your mind before we close this first part. Something I am going to come back to, because it is important. There is a woman I heard from who carried a very specific feeling for 7 months. A sense that something significant was building in her life. Something she could not name, but could not stop feeling. She told herself she was imagining it. She told herself the feeling had no basis. And then, at the 7-month mark, tired of waiting for confirmation that never arrived, she told a close friend something. She said, "I think I was wrong about this. I think whatever I thought was coming is not." That was 2 weeks before the shift arrived. I am going to finish her story in part 2. But I am planting it here because if you are at your own version of, "I think I was wrong about this," I need you to stay. The most dangerous moment in a waiting season is not the beginning. It is the final days before the arrival, and you need to know what those final days look like. Before I close this part, there is one more thing I want to give you to carry into part 2. We have talked about character formation, the stripping of false identity, the building of patience as a skill. But there is something else God has been developing during this season, and it is not in your soul. It is in your brain. Dr. Lake has spent more than 30 years documenting exactly this, building a complete restoration sequence for people who are standing at this kind of threshold. What he built is not a single answer. It is a sequence of phases. Today, I am only going to show you the first one. But that first door opens something that changes how you receive everything else. Before we close, these are the words that have been placed on my heart for whoever is in this threshold today. I hear the Father saying this: "I have seen every day of your waiting, not from a distance, from right beside you. Every morning you got up when everything in you wanted to stop. Every night you prayed into what felt like silence. Every moment you chose to hold on. I was not absent during any of it. I was building something. And what I have been building, I am now releasing. The shift you have been sensing in your bones is not your imagination. It is my intention. The chrysalis is not your prison. It is my workshop, and the work is finished. The shift is not coming. The shift is here. I have been waiting not to see if you would make it, but for the kairos moment when I could finally say to you, it is time, go. I am with you. Part 2 is where everything we open today gets completed. I am going to walk you through exactly what the shift restructures, in specific and honest terms. I am going to name the one obstacle that could cause you to mishandle this moment, even after everything you have carried. And I am going to reveal what Dr. Lake documented about your brain, the specific frequency that was built into you at birth, and what has been suppressing it, because that changes how you receive what God is releasing right now. Stay with me. And if what you heard today already landed somewhere real inside you, type 444 inches the comments right now. Find the other chosen ones who are standing in the same threshold. You are not alone in this. Chosen one, welcome back. In part 1, we covered 3 things. The waiting was never punishment. It was kairos, appointed time, and formation. The 5 signs you have been experiencing are not anxiety. They are your spirit signaling that the shift is close. And we left with a woman who was 2 weeks away from everything changing at the exact moment she had almost given up. Let me finish her story now. She had been carrying a sense of something building for 7 months. She described it as a low, persistent hum in the background of her life, like standing near a power source you cannot quite touch. Week after week, nothing she could point to confirmed that the feeling was real. Around month 6, the silence started to feel personal. It started to feel like evidence against her, like her own discernment was the problem. In month 7, she told her closest friend those words: "I think I was wrong about this. I think whatever I thought was coming is not coming." 2 weeks later, the shift arrived, not with fanfare, not as the dramatic moment she had spent months imagining. She described it as a change in air pressure. The air in the room simply felt different, and with that shift came a clarity she had not felt in years. Decisions that had been impossible for months became obvious overnight. The next step, which had been completely invisible, became the only logical thing. The connection she had been waiting for arrived. The door she had been standing in front of opened, not loudly, completely. And what she told me afterward was this: "The thing I almost quit was not the waiting. I almost quit 2 weeks before the arrival." Chosen one, hear that. The silence before the shift is not evidence that the shift is not coming. It is the final compression before the release. And if you are at your own version of month 7, I need you to stay. Now I want to come back to the chrysalis one more time, because we are not done with it yet. There is something about the very final stage that most people do not know. When the butterfly is ready to emerge, it does not wait for someone to open the shell. It pushes from the inside. And the resistance of pushing against that last layer is the last piece of the formation. The butterfly that struggles its way out is stronger than any butterfly that was helped. The effort in the final moments is not a failure. It is the completion. Your struggle in the final days of this season is not evidence that the breakthrough has been delayed. It is evidence that the emergence is close. And I want to say something to you about who you are right now. At this specific threshold, you are not the same person who entered this season. The person who entered the chrysalis no longer exists in the same form. What the waiting dissolved and rebuilt has the specific capacity to carry what is being released. You are the cycle breaker, the one whose shift ends a pattern that ran in your environment and your circumstances longer than it should have. You are the seer, the one who recognized the signals when everyone else called them anxiety or overthinking. You are the truth carrier, the one who cannot live comfortably inside what is not real. You did not wander into this threshold by accident. You were built for it. And every single day of the chrysalis was the building. Before I continue, I want to pause briefly and share something that connects directly to what we are talking about. Dr. Robert Lake spent more than 3 decades studying the moment when formation completes and the shift begins, and specifically, what the brain needs to be able to receive what is being released. Out of all that research, he developed a specific tool. It is called the Genius Song. It is a 7-minute audio track that works through a process called brain entrainment to activate the gamma frequency, the specific brainwave state that researchers connect to breakthrough, to clarity, to the state in which the mind becomes capable of receiving what was previously just out of reach. I am going to come back to this in more depth before this message ends, but I wanted you to know it exists now, because what I am about to teach next is exactly the context that makes it matter. If something in you is already asking, the information is in the description and the pinned comment below. Now, here is what the final warning means. The shift is not one event. It is a restructuring across 3 dimensions of your life, happening in a compressed time frame, and all 3 areas move at once. Relationships, purpose, provision. And the reason I am calling this a warning is not to create fear. It is to prepare you. Because fast change, even when it is the thing you asked for, requires you to stand firm in what you know is true when it arrives. The people who mishandle the shift are almost always the people who were not told in advance what it was going to look like when it came. But before I walk you through each area, I need to name the one obstacle that could cause you to miss this moment entirely, because it is the one no one expects. It is the fear of the shift itself. I know that sounds strange. You have been waiting for this. You have been asking for this. And yet, when you sit quietly with the reality that the shift is actually here, something in your chest feels afraid. Afraid of what comes after God is done waiting. Let me name it specifically, because named fears have less power than unnamed ones. What if I receive what I asked for, and I make a mess of it? What if the shift reveals who I actually am, and the answer is not enough? What if I have spent so long in the waiting that I do not know who I am outside of it? What if the assignment is bigger than what I feel capable of? That fear does not mean you are not ready. That fear is actually evidence that you are. Because the people who crashed when they received what they asked for were the ones who had no awareness of the weight, no reverence, no healthy respect for the responsibility. Your fear of the shift is not a weakness. It is the sign of someone who understands that what is coming actually matters. And if you want a way to move through that fear right now, here is something you can do without going anywhere. Ask yourself 3 questions, one at a time. The first, is this fear based on who I am right now, or who I was before this season began? The second, is the obstacle I am afraid of a present reality or a future possibility I have not yet encountered? The third, if someone who knew my full journey said to me, "You are ready," would I be able to believe them? Sit with each question before answering. Do not rush. The slower you respond, the clearer the signal becomes. Because urgency distorts, stillness clarifies. And if the answers point toward readiness, that is not arrogance, that is honest discernment. And I want to speak directly to the fear itself right now. You are allowed to be afraid and step through anyway. You are allowed to feel unqualified and still be commissioned. You are allowed to carry questions about your readiness and still move forward. You are allowed to not have every answer and still say yes to the calling. You are allowed to be in process and still be in position for what is coming. And you do not owe anyone an apology for becoming who God always built you to be. The chrysalis did not make you perfect. It made you ready. And ready is what this moment requires. Now let me walk you through what the shift actually looks like in those 3 areas. The first area is your relationships. For those entering this season, people you thought were permanent in your life are going to step back. Not all of them, but the ones whose season with you has completed. It will hurt. You will question whether you push them away, whether your growth cost you something it should not have. Do not try to hold what is already releasing. Do not force what is already finishing, because just when you feel most alone in this transition, people who speak the language of your calling will begin to appear. People who do not need you to explain the season because they are in one too. The aloneness that comes first is not abandonment, it is clearing. The second area is your purpose. The clarity you have been asking for will not arrive gradually. It will arrive as sudden recognition, like stepping back from something you have been standing too close to and finally seeing the full picture. When it comes, it will feel equal parts relief and terror. Relief because finally, terror because clearly. Do not negotiate with the clarity. Do not wait for a more convenient moment. The calling was always this. You are only now ready to hear it at full volume. The third area is your provision. This is where many chosen ones stumble, because provision in the new season does not operate by the same logic as before. You will watch things align in ways that do not fully add up on paper. Resources will arrive through channels that did not exist last year. It will feel like the math stopped making sense but kept working. Do not run ahead of the alignment, trying to manufacture what God is already moving. Step into the function. Do what you are called to do. Provision follows, function, not the other way around. Now I want to give you the truth that changes everything. The truth that takes everything we have talked about today and reframes all of it at once. What felt like abandonment was actually anointing. What felt like delay was actually development. What felt like silence was actually strategy. What felt like being forgotten was actually being protected. What felt like the longest wait of your life was actually the shortest possible path to where you needed to arrive. And here is the paradigm flip. The thing no one told you before today. God was not done waiting for you. God was done waiting on the version of you that still needed the chrysalis. The shift is not happening because the world is finally ready for you. The shift is happening because you are finally ready for what the world requires. God was never delayed. You were never behind. The waiting was not about circumstances aligning. It was about you becoming the person who could carry what the circumstances required. The chrysalis is not cracking because you pushed against it. It is cracking because the work inside it is complete. And these are the words that have been placed on my heart to speak over you right now. I hear the Father saying this. My child, I was not withholding from you. I was completing something in you. Every day you thought I was absent, I was right there, building something that required exactly that day. And now it is complete. Now I release what I have been holding in reserve for you. The shift begins not because I finally decided to move, but because you are finally ready to receive. You did not earn this by being perfect. You earned it by not quitting. The chrysalis is open. Come out. Before I show you the specific tool that God has been building in parallel with everything He was forming inside you, and I will show you, because that is exactly where this has always been heading, I need to give you one final piece of the picture first, because this one changes how you understand the capacity that was being developed all along. Let me tell you what Dr. Lake found. Dr. Lake spent 34 years studying the brain states of people who had just experienced what anyone watching from the outside would call a breakthrough, sudden clarity, decisive action, unexpected provision, the shift, and what the research, documented through institutions including MIT, Princeton, and several other leading research universities, came back with consistently was this. Every single one of those people was operating in the same brainwave state at the time of their breakthrough, not by coincidence, by a very specific neural condition called the gamma frequency. Gamma is the highest level brainwave. Researchers have linked it to peak mental clarity, to rapid pattern recognition, to the state in which the mind begins to function at the level it was originally designed for. And here is what most people were never told. When you were a child, gamma was your default state, not a special achievement, your baseline. It is why children learn languages in months. It is why the creativity of a 5-year-old puts the analytical thinking of a 40-year-old to shame. Gamma is not a rare gift. Gamma is the original frequency, the God-given state you were born carrying. But something happens between childhood and adulthood. Dr. Lake named it the decline effect, a gradual, measurable suppression of gamma activity caused by the accumulation of chronic stress, by the conditioning of systems that were never designed to protect your highest function, by the constant noise of a world that, honestly, operates more easily when your brain stays manageable and quiet. By the time most people reach their 30s and 40s, the gamma access they were born with has been almost entirely suppressed, not destroyed, suppressed. And that suppression is exactly why so many chosen ones feel like they are operating through glass. Like the connection to clarity, to flow, to divine reception is still there somewhere, but something is standing between them and it. There was a woman who knew exactly that feeling, 38 years old. She had spent years searching for the kind of spiritual connection she felt as a child. Retreats, prayer practices, everything she could try. She described the disconnection as a wall she could not find the door in. After 2 weeks of listening to the audio track that Dr. Lake built around reactivating gamma, she used one word to describe what had changed: synchronicities. The universe had started speaking in a language she could finally hear clearly. The signs she had been asking for began arriving. The connections began appearing. The wall was gone, not because she had finally done enough, because the frequency of her brain had been recalibrated to receive what had been transmitting all along. That audio track is called The Genius Song. 7 minutes. You put on headphones, you close your eyes, and you listen. No meditation, training needed. No breathing technique required. The brain entrainment. Technology does the work. Dr. Lake compressed 34 years of research into a 7-minute experience that anyone can use, regardless of where they are in their spiritual journey or how much time they have. Let me be honest with you about the investment, because the comparison matters. A single biofeedback therapy session, the professional clinical approach to brainwave states, runs around $150 per visit, and a complete protocol requires multiple sessions over several weeks. A weekend spiritual retreat costs anywhere from $400 to $800. A meditation app subscription costs $15 every month, indefinitely, and never specifically targets the gamma frequency. None of those options were built around what Dr. Lake discovered. None of them do what the genius song was designed to do. The original price Dr. Lake set was $49, which was already dramatically less than any comparable path. For those who find themselves brought to this message, the price is $39, one time, no subscription. You will not find this price on any other platform. It is available specifically for those who were led here, and it comes with $80 in free bonuses. There is Genius Child, a 6-minute version calibrated for children, so the decline effect never has the chance to take hold before it starts. There is a classic book, the original source material that the film The Secret was drawn from, with practical principles about provision and abundance that most people have never read at their root. There is a guided 22-minute visualization that walks you through 4 dimensions of your life. And there is a 5-habit infographic showing the daily practices of people who have kept gamma activated long after their reactivation. $80 in resources, completely free with the $39 investment. Here is the guarantee: 90 days. If you listen and you do not feel the shift in how your mind receives, in how your spirit processes what God is releasing into your life, you receive a complete refund. And you keep every single one of the bonuses regardless. They are yours, no conditions. Dr. Lake built this for people in precisely your season, not for people who have everything working. For people standing at the threshold of the shift, who need their frequency recalibrated to receive what is already being sent. More than 18,000 people have used the Genius song. Fewer than 4% have asked for a refund, which means more than 96% of people who listened continued listening, not because someone told them to, because they felt the difference. One thing before you search anywhere else. There are imitations online that use similar language, but do not carry the specific entrainment technology Dr. Lake developed. The only verified source is in the description and the pinned comment below. Go there when you feel led, and only when you feel led. Let me give you the 3 things to carry out of today. The first, the waiting was never wasted. Not one single day. It was Kairos formation. The chrysalis building in you, the exact capacity the shift requires. Every day of it was development, not delay. The second, the shift restructures relationships, purpose, and provision at the same time. Some of it will feel like loss before it feels like gain. Hold firm in what you know is true. The aloneness is clearing. The clarity is your commission. The provision follows the function. The third, your brain has a measurable frequency for receiving what God releases. It has been suppressed, not destroyed, and it can be recalibrated. That is not vague spiritual language. That is what decades of documented research has established. Before we close, I want to do one thing with you. I do not need you to move anywhere. I just want you to hold one picture in your mind for a moment. Imagine yourself standing in a late autumn field. The light is that specific golden quality that only comes at the very end of a long season. Everything that was planted is now full and heavy and ready, and you are standing in the middle of it, not as the farmer waiting to reap, as the harvest itself, as the thing that has been growing through the entire season, finally standing in the light. Feel what it is like to be seen after so long in the dark. Feel what it is like to be outside the chrysalis. The wings are already there. They were not created overnight. They were built inside the pressure, built inside every day of the waiting. They are yours. They were always going to be yours. The shift does not make you who you are. It reveals who you already became. That picture is not imagination. It is an accurate picture of where you are standing right now. Chosen one, it is time to release the identity of the one who waited. Not because the waiting did not matter. It mattered more than you may realize. But the season is finished. You do not carry it forward as a wound. You carry it as a credential, as the evidence of a faith that held on without visible confirmation. That is not a small thing. That is one of the rarest things in the world. So in your mind, right now, Let the hands of who you were in the wilderness open. That identity served its purpose fully. What was built inside it is yours forever. But the season itself can be laid down. You are the cycle breaker, the one whose shift ends a pattern that ran in your bloodline and your circumstances longer than it should have. You are the seer, the one who recognized the signals when everyone else called them anxiety. You are the truth carrier, the one who cannot live comfortably inside what is not real. You are the light bearer, the one whose shift does not just change your own life, but illuminates the path for every person watching you step through. You are anointed. You are commissioned. You are sent. And these are the final words that have been placed on my heart to speak over you today. I hear the Father saying this: you are not too late. You are not too early. You are exactly on time. I have been waiting, not to see if you would prove yourself, not to see if you would finally become worthy, but for the Kairos moment, when I could look at everything the chrysalis built in you and finally say, it is time. The shell is open. Come out. Everything that was formed inside the waiting is yours to carry forward now. I am with you in the shift, the same way I was with you in the wilderness. You were never alone in there. And you will not be alone out here. Go. Somewhere in the world right now, another chosen one is hearing these same words in their own threshold and making the same decision you are making. You are not alone in this shift. You were never alone in the waiting. And the shift that moves in your life sends ripples into the lives of everyone watching you step through. This is what chosen means. Not one person arriving alone, a generation crossing over together. If these words found you exactly where you needed them today, type 444 inches, the comments, right now. Scroll through and read what other chosen ones are saying. That community is one of the most powerful confirmations that the shift is real and that you are not the only one standing in this threshold. If what you heard today spoke to your spirit, your like on this video is your declaration that you believe the shift is real, that you are not backing down. There is someone in your life right now who is in the longest waiting season they have ever known. Someone at their own version of month 7. Share this message with them today, not as content, as a word that arrives at the right moment. Stay connected for what comes next. What follows this message builds directly on what was opened here today. And for those who feel called to take the step with the Genius song, the information is in the description and the pinned comment. Go when you feel led. The Kairos is now. Chosen one. The chrysalis is open. You are ready. Go.